For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashnee Moodley. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
The notion of state capture is prominent in public discourse and now is the subject of litigation with regard to the report of the public protector. Do you think it's a useful concept?
Yes, I don't know, I don't want to analyze the concept. I myself have not used the term, but I'm not sure of the disadvantages of using it. What I understand it to be referring to is undue influence on decision making or deriving benefits as a result of a special relationship that people establish with decision makers. For example, it is alleged that the Gupta family have special access to the president, and as a result of that access, they have been able to secure certain deals. For example, there is that coal deal where Eskom paid in advance 500 million or something, even before they got the coal. Before they inspected the quality of the coal, they paid. And a number of things like this, benefits, they say, derive from the special relationship. And we have seen how the Guptas landed an aircraft at Waterkloof Air Base. They have a sense that instead of South Africa belonging to all who live in it, South Africa belongs to them and their associates. Now, in the notion of state capture is then meant to depict the loss of independence of the South African state, and it's becoming under the hegemony of certain powerful forces, not just the Guptas necessarily. But I think it can be used in another way. By the way, also when they derive these benefits in exchange, as happens with patronage and corruption relationships, other people have benefited. And we have seen how a number of the members of the president's family, particularly his one son who lives at the Gupta compound, have become very, very wealthy as a result of this relationship. Now, that is what the previous public protector has been investigating. Well, not only that, the Guptas, in consequence of the position of influence that they are alleged to have over the president, are claimed to have offered positions to certain people. B.C. Jonas, the Deputy Minister of Finance, is alleged to have been offered the Ministry of Finance through the Gupta family and to have been offered 600 million rands at one point, or I can't remember the amount, maybe it's 600,000, but I think it's 600 million, some huge amount of money, if he did the job in accordance with what they required. The way in which I understand it is that capture can occur also domestically, in the sense that particular individuals may capture state resources and state entities and divert their resources for their own benefit and that of their associates. So that in a sense we could argue that the South African state may have been captured by Zuma and his associates, foreign or not foreign, before the Guptas arrived here, or without the Guptas becoming such a big factor. Now, what is at stake here is those who want to pillage on the one hand, and those who want to defend the resources on the other hand. Now, the Treasury is very central to this, in that they monitor what is happening with South African Airways, they monitor what is happening with Eskom, they monitor what is happening with a number of state-owned enterprises and a number of ministries. Consequently, if you can weaken the Treasury, you can open the path for greater access by those who want to pillage the state. Consequently, we can understand the removal of Nene in that context, together with the alleged closeness of Des van Rooyen to the Gupta family. So it was hoped, it seems, that by having someone like van Rooyen, who came in with his own advisors, didn't really talk much to the people who were running the finance department. They had definite tasks to do. Unfortunately for them, it was interrupted. Now we know it's not only a pillage of resources, it is also something that runs against the economic well-being of the country as a whole, in that South African bonds, shares, everything, the rand, all tumbled. Now, some people say it's only the wealthy and white monopoly capital who are worried about this, but it's not true, because since the Nene removal of last year, we've seen the price of things rocket. I mean, if you look at the price of sugar, for example, the price of milk in cartons, all of these things have gone up by very, very significant amounts. So if you fill your cart with groceries, you're paying substantially more than before, and salaries have not gone up in accordance with that. So on the one hand, you have the Treasury that defends this, and you also have now attempts to weaken the capacity of the Treasury, hence the debacle over Van Rooyen. But Zuma was not reconciled to the removal of Van Rooyen. We know that he said Van Rooyen is the best qualified Minister of Finance we've ever had, and that from early on in the tenure of Gordhan, there have been threats of charges. There have been this trumped-up story about a rogue unit in SARS. The Sunday Times had a number of stories planted there, and they then were forced to apologize. The press ombudsman called on them to apologize, and the new editor also withdrew, apologized for those stories. Now, we then had these threats of charges against Gordhan around the rogue unit. Suddenly they brought charges, we know, and he's appearing in court on the 2nd of November, unless this is withdrawn, charge of fraud and theft relating to a pension payout to the former Deputy Commissioner, Ivan Pillay. Now, according to the records, this has happened, this type of pension payout has happened to thousands of people. It's a regular practice. There's nothing unauthorized. It's not only is it not criminal, it's not even irregular according to the regulations of the civil service. And it was on that basis that it was granted by the former Commissioner, Oupa Magashula, and the minister, then Minister Gordhan, approved it as well. Now, after charging them, a number of organizations have reacted. You've got Freedom Under Law and Helen Suzman Foundation, who are not just criticizing it. They are saying not only must this not go to court, it must be set aside as a prosecution which was not brought rationally and in good faith. And it appears that subsequent to charging him, which was done in a very theatrical way by Sean Abrams, saying no one will ever disrespect the NPA again. In fact, they're disrespecting them much more than before. And after bringing the charges, once the Helen Suzman Foundation and Freedom Under Law brought their action, they started to look for information. Now, some of this information was already in the public domain. When Ivan Pillay brought his case to the Labour Court in 2014, a legal opinion was attached to this by this man Flock Symington, who was yesterday a hostage. And that legal opinion said it was perfectly legal to do this. So they should have known this. Anyone who does their homework for a case should have done this. Now, obviously now they're starting to panic. And yesterday we had this really shocking hostage-taking event at SARS. It may have been that Tom Moyane gave the wrong document to the wrong person, and they tried to get this document back from Symington. Now the document relates to another lawyer at SARS saying that ethically he doesn't want to associate himself with the prosecution because he doesn't agree with the NPA and Hawke's approach to this. Now, what happened yesterday is hard to believe. Today in the Times, the Hawks is claiming it was staged, that it was set up or some such thing. But there's enough evidence there to show there was nothing staged about it. I mean, the way in which that person from the police, 101 reacted is not staged. That is very much a reflection of how bureaucratic people are in an emergency, that they don't even, they don't react when someone tells them that there's an emergency. So what happened yesterday was a desperate attempt to keep open the paths of looting by keeping open the possibility of prosecuting Gordhan. Now, so what I've been trying to say really is that the prosecution of Gordhan is a prosecution of the head of the Treasury who acts in order to curb the possibilities of unauthorized access to state resources. And in order to prevent their looting from being fettered, they want to get rid of Gordhan, and they want to put someone there who will look after them properly and allow Eskom to do what they like, Denel to do what they like, etc., etc. And we have seen not only Gordhan, but a number of people who stand in the way of the looting, whether they are people associated with the Hawks like Boyson and Dramat, or with IPID like McBride, have all been shafted or attempted to be shafted.
So where to from here?
You know, what I find strange about the Zuma era is that the appetite for pillaging is like unlimited. I think they have their eyes on much more than this. This is why there was the story that the Guptas were going to Dubai, then seem to have gone to Dubai. And maybe they'll go to Dubai if there's a danger to them. But also, my understanding is that the president is not, his appetite has not been sated. For us as citizens, this is very, very dangerous. And getting rid of the president, it may be that some people want to get rid of the president, but within the ANC there is not yet agreement on someone who can take his place. And even if one gets rid of the president, does that resolve the problem? Does that remove the patterns of patronage and corruption that run from top to bottom of the South African state today. I'm not saying it all started with Zuma, but it's actually intensified and become much more criminalized in this period. So all these movements that are now gathering to save South Africa or to unite against the criminality that is rife at the moment are important, and I think we need to build such movements in order to regenerate the democratic life and to protect the resources, and in order to reduce the inequalities in this country.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about state capture.